Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lakeisha Coleman. I'm a solution engineer for Esri on the state government team, and I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia office. My territory is the southeastern states, so it includes Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. Again, thank you for joining me. The plan for the next probably 35-40 minutes is to go over some of the updates that we've had in our field applications. We'll say the past year, but also a lot of them from this past fall release or update. I was with you guys last year, talked about some field maps. Today, I'm going to go mostly over a lot of good Survey123 updates, and then I'll dive into field maps for a little bit, and then just a little bit more with quick capture on those updates. So I'm just going to dive right in. So again, we'll start with Survey123. We've had quite a few different updates that have come out, especially in this past September release, version 3.13. Some of the highlights that I'll go over today include some smart form features that have been included, especially with the new address question that I think you all will enjoy. We have some functionality with dynamic lists and also some conditional visibility rules updates. We'll get into some field data collection updates, which include some inbox updates for image support, and then also some better annotation tools. And then I'll also get into the web designer for the online surveys to look at some of those enhancements. And that includes a big one, which is calculations for different types of questions. And I think you'll enjoy that too. I'm going to start with addresses, as this is a big, we'll say a big issue, but also it's a very important question type that we tend to include in our surveys because it's the most common way that we end up getting locations of something, of the observations of what our field crews are out there doing. So again, most common way to get that, because they're also not used to either pinpointing a location on a map, or sometimes they just can't, either they don't know exactly where it is. So typing in an address tends to help. As you see on the little video I have on the right-hand side that I borrowed from a colleague, as you're typing in inputs, essentially, there is a possibility that you're going to mistype something. For instance, in this case, it should be 380 New York, not New York Street, and it should be Redlands, California, not Redlands. So working with addresses, we tend to, we have to overcome those typos, inconsistencies with how we're inputting those addresses. Sometimes people abbreviate, sometimes they don't. And just to kind of clean up that data and help with field personnel, we've included a new address question. So what you see as this is being typed in the service address, we'll call it a simplified consolidated address question type. And so as you start typing, you'll see that predictive text will start filling in the address for the user. And then also notice this is in one field as opposed to going into street address and then the city, then the state, zip code. That becomes a little cumbersome, and having it all in one field just, it just helps to save time, especially when you're out collecting data. So I'm going to hop into our Survey123 web designer so I can show you what this looks like in action, essentially. And then I'll come back to this PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Survey123 application from my app launcher. And I'm just going to show you a survey that I've been working on for my Georgia team, the Adopt a Stream volunteers, essentially. So they have a stream habitat survey that they need to fill out, which includes a lot of different paper pages, a few pages long, and they essentially have to go through wherever they are at the particular stream location and do an assessment of what that stream looks like, the condition of the stream. And so they are putting in a score of what that condition is and then kind of tallying that up in the end. Now, this particular survey is not necessarily ideal for an address type question, but I do just want to show you that question type within the survey because I'm going to use this survey for something else later on. So I'm going to add the new address question into my survey. And then also notice here on how to submit, you have the choice to submit the address as text and point geometry or just the text itself. And then I'm going to do kind of a twofer here. I'm going to add a new map question as well, because I want to show you some of the calculations options that we have for questions, especially a map question itself. And notice it gives you a note talking about geometry will not be submitted. It's currently set to submit just the point. I'll just go ahead and click OK. Call this map. And within my map question, you should see this calculation. Now I'll get in here because basically what I want to do is I still want to have the field crews collect the address, but I also want to have this to display on a map later on that I can take a look at either back in the office or basically see it on a bigger map overall. So I'm going to extract data from that particular question, which was the address question, and I'm telling it essentially to take the actual address that was typed in and match that location to my map. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And we're going to preview this. So now when I get into my address question, I'll use the same address, our headquarters out in Redlands, California. Notice as I'm typing, I'm getting more information and I can start figuring out which one I want to choose. And as I zoom in, you will see this. Sorry for all the panning. This is centered on 380 Redlands, or 380 New York Street in Redlands, California. So that is both a new address question type as well as a new map question with a calculation pulling from that previous address question that is essentially dropping that point on my map. So another calculation question that I want to show you, again, I mentioned the team has to go out and they have to enter an assessment of the stream bed, the stream bank, whatever they're looking at. So previously what we had in their survey was an evaluation type question. This is like a Likert scale question, and these are not stored as integers. So if I want to do something with these numbers later on, I can't really do that because it's not in the format that I need. So the team has to enter these scores and then essentially go back and add up all of these different subsections and then provide a total score in the end. So I have my epifaunal substrate score and my embeddedness score. And in the end, we get a total score. So maybe I want to save some time for my field crews. I don't want them to have to do math, even if it's basic arithmetic. I just want them to enter their information and then this gets tallied up for them. So same idea with the calculation. I'm going to go in to set an expression. We already saw extract data on the address and map question. I'm actually going to extract a number, or I'm going to pull in a number. So I want to select which questions I want to include in my formula or my expression. This one's a pretty simple calculation. I'm just adding all of these different fields, and for this particular sample, I only have 2 in here anyway. So I want to add all these scores up, click OK. Go ahead and preview this. Sorry, my previews are taking a little longer than anticipated. So I get in here, I enter my epifaunal substrate. It's a 4, not doing all that great. A 5 as well, and great, 4 plus 5 is 9. But then I also notice, oh, well, I could actually change this, and I don't want that to actually happen. I want the field crews either to not see this or not be able to edit this at all. So let me go back over here and notice you have some other options that you can set for your particular question types. And so I made this read only. And then even if I wanted to hide this from the survey altogether, I could do that. So the person just needs to input the scores and just keep going about their observations. Get back in here, we'll do a 3, maybe a 4, 7. Notice this is read only, I can't touch this. So this is going to be helpful for both the field crews and the person back in the office, especially if you need to dashboard this or do some analytics on this later on, knowing that even though they're entering the information, there's not a way to almost accidentally change that data that's been collected. So those are a couple of the enhancements with the latest release. There's also one, we'll call this a simple one, but this is a pretty big one for a lot of people. If I needed to, I could just go in and change the name of my survey while I'm in the designer versus having to click out and go to a couple of different links to do that. So going back to why we would want to use the address question. Again, it's going to save some time. You're going to get some better quality location data. And also you're not going to sit there and wait a whole bunch of, we'll say minutes, a lot of time to be able to see where that data is being collected. So you're going from address to a map and the user is not really having to think about it. And you can also hide that map question if needed. If you have your own custom locator, you could use that. Otherwise, it'll use the world geocoding service that we have. And if you are storing those locations, it will consume credits. It's very minimal. One of the other features that I'd like to show you are dynamic lists. And so I have a couple of different ways I'm going to show you dynamic lists. This is an example of a Survey123 on the mobile app. Excuse me, let me get rid of my, there we are. And working with dynamic lists in the sense that you see this question type, maybe we have teams or crews, California Task Force 1 and 2. They're out collecting their observations but now someone else needs to get in there and collect. And so they would select other. And maybe this particular team is Arizona Task Force 3, 4, 5, whatnot. So if they select other, they can actually type in that team name now and then submit their information. And then the next time they go back into their survey, they will see that particular team, for instance, shown on their survey. And this is by not having to do anything crazy with changing the schema. This is dynamic. So essentially it's pulling from the feature that you would have stored. I'm going to dive in some more to give you a little more detail on what that looks like as well in a different way. This would be in Survey123 Connect. So this is going to show you how to do, or I'll show you how to populate particular questions based on something else that was entered before. And then this gives you a little zoomed in preview of what this would look like in your Excel form. So this is in the appearance column. And this is going to work with either select one or select multiple question types. So again, this is going to be useful if you have to work with really long lists, large choice lists, or lists that might change often. So if you have a team maybe of 10 that it will consistently be that team of 10, this isn't necessarily ideal for that. If you have a list that's consistently changing, maybe you're adding volunteers or you're adding different types of something, this would be ideal for that particular question type and field data collection. And then also lastly, I'm excited about this, supports attribute and spatial queries, and I will show you this in Survey123 Connect. So let me go ahead and open that up. Okay. Here we are in my big Survey123 Connect page. And one way to get started with dynamic lists, and we don't need to see all of that, if you have no idea where to start with even kind of, we'll say, formulating these expressions in the Excel form, we do have a sample that you can basically start with. And so it gives you all of that syntax written out. So one way to grab this, go to the samples and just start typing dynamic choice lists. If you just start typing dynamic, you'll see this. And this will bring up an Excel form that you can start with, and it also gives you some links in there to get more information on that particular appearance type question. Also, if you have not updated Survey123 to the latest version, you won't even see that in the samples list. So make sure you're updated to 3.13. Otherwise, it won't even populate. I'm going to go into my dynamic list survey. And so on this main page, it gives you some information on that particular appearance field and column, as well as how this search feature is working, how the dynamic choice list is operating. And then it also takes you out to our web page on appearance, and it gives you even more detail on how to set up those questions. Expand this a little bit. Okay, so one of the first ones I'd like to show you is looking at all records in a feature layer. So this particular question, it has me selecting a state. And this also gives you the note that this choice list is loading dynamically from USA States Generalized. This is from our Living Atlas data. And it tells me it contains 51 polygons. So maybe I know I'm collecting data, we'll say in Georgia. Then my next question, apply an attribute query to a feature layer. This one is on counties, so it's essentially filtering out my county list based on the state that I input previously. So I can go and take a look at, yes, I have 159 counties in Georgia. So I'll go and I'll say choose the county I'm in, which is Clayton County. And so that is essentially showing you two different ones within a dynamic list working with United States counties. But say, okay, I'm not actually in Georgia. This is for Florida. And notice when I change my state to Florida, my previously entered county now turns red. It turns red because there actually is not a Clayton County in Florida. But now I see all the counties that are in Florida, and I'll go ahead and choose the county I need to be in. So that's a couple of different ways that dynamic list, just attribute querying from some feature layers, works. So the next grouping I have is applying a spatial query to a feature layer, and these are some of my favorite features that have been added. So first one being polygon contains points. So a lot of times we'll be out in the field, or someone will be out in the field, and they're collecting data, and maybe they're not exactly sure the exact location of something, but they know it might be within a certain, we'll say, mile radius from where they are. So you can get in here and essentially draw a polygon. I'll go ahead and accept this polygon. Accept again. See my polygon on the map. It gives me some information in terms of area and perimeter. And maybe I'm looking for a particular school. I know it's in this area. And so what this is also doing is pulling from the public schools location layer that I have set up in my survey. And so now when I click on my dropdown, I can see the only schools that are available in that polygon are these three. So I'll choose McKinley Elementary. That's the one I was looking for. So I really like this polygon feature. I think that's going to save field crews a lot of time when searching either for a different asset, maybe they couldn't quite remember that number, or any other feature that will help whenever you're able to draw something on the map. Another one is very similar, line crosses line. So I can draw a line on my map, and maybe, I don't know, maybe someone's looking to figure out what route they took or which freeways they came upon while out in the field. Probably not freeways with the line of work, but maybe it's particular pipes or other assets. So for this instance, it is select a freeway route number. So from that line that I just drew, this queries out any of those particular freeway numbers that intersect with that line. Similarly with points, so points intersecting buffered points. So I'll go ahead and take a look at my map. That's where I am now. We'll go home to Redlands. Select this point. And again, it also gives me information in terms of latitude and longitude. For this particular instance, maybe I'm interested in finding a certain type of store. So, and again, this is optional, but maybe I want a donut and I want to look for a bakery that's nearby. And so the next question here is also selecting those particular stores within a half-mile distance, or you can set up your particular search radius or parameters, half-mile distance from that particular point. And I found one that's cute, nothing bundt cakes. And there we have it with the point filter. Another example, this one is only supported in the Field app, and it'll give you some more information on that appearances link if you take a look at that, and why, mainly because this isn't populated on a previous question in the web app. So this has to be set up a little differently. So maybe I'm also looking for a particular store category. I'll stick with bakery just because, and I'll go back to my map. I'll still use Redlands. Find me bakeries within 5 miles, and I have 3. I'll still choose nothing bundt cakes just because I like that name. So that's the point, a couple of different ways to do the point feature. Lastly, the line intersects buffered points with the particular attribute filter. So say I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. I'll just accept this line that's already drawn. And I'm interested in finding out which wind turbine manufacturers are within 5 kilometers of that particular search line. And my line length is 85 miles. So same idea, it is pulling from the USA wind turbines layer. And these are all the particular manufacturers that were operational. And if I want to query even further, I'll go back to the previous question and I'll actually do 2010. Who is in operation in the year 2010? And notice that your choice list updates dynamically, essentially. And that's it for Survey123 Connect. Lastly, I do want to show you for that particular piece what this looks like in that Excel form. So we'll go back to the first one where I had select one state or select a state. And so this is, again, going to be in your appearance column. I know this is hard to see, but you're essentially inputting the feature service, the URL for that particular feature service into your survey form. That way it knows where to query from on that feature. And then there's all of this comes with that particular sample. It'll have you set up in a nice way to get started. I won't save. Some other pieces with Survey123 that have been updated, there's now image support for the field app inbox. So previously you weren't able to get those pictures and download them, see what's going on. Now you can. You can view and update those images from those particular records in the inbox. On the horizon for the team, they're hoping to add support for signatures and other media files pretty soon, hopefully by the beginning of the year, but not sure on the exact date for that one yet. There's also some better annotation tools to help out. So this should be a lot easier to work with. Get in there in Survey123 and just kind of play around with that. You can also, you can annotate maps and photos, either that you're taking directly from your device or uploading. And then you can also send that annotated picture or whatever media as attachments as well. There's also some extra navigation tools, panning and zooming, a little better to work with there. And then also you have the option for higher quality outputs of your media. And also still on the horizon, hoping to get some custom annotation tools for early 2020. And there is an early adopters group that you can join if you want to provide feedback. And you can go onto the Survey123 site and find that. I'm going to hop into field maps. I know I've got quite a bit to cover here. So field maps, there wasn't too much, I'll say that was updated over the course of, we'll say this past quarter, but they have continued to improve field maps over the past year. Again, last year I covered field maps with this group. This year, some of the main updates I do want to show you are in the web designer and also some tracker pieces. As the other applications are being deprecated, we're trying to get all of that functionality within field maps. So I want to show you some of the new pieces in field maps. I'll go to my app launcher. Go ahead and open this old map, adopt a stream, still in Georgia. And notice you'll see some blue dots, and it's not the blue dot like the location blue dot, but this is just basically highlighting what's new. So before I get to that, you still see your overview. You can view the content of what's in that particular map on this page. You can see the different layers that are in there. You can also configure your offline status. I don't actually have my layers updated here, but I do like that it tells you before you try to enable offline mode, you need to go and update these layers in your map. So I don't have sync enabled, just a few other settings that I need to fix before I try to do that. I like this feature, these notifications, because I'm sure you're all aware sometimes you'll try to do something and it won't let you, but you have no idea why. It doesn't give you any kind of information on the error. So this helps. For the settings, so settings is new. Settings are now part of your map. If you recall from months ago, this used to be grayed out and you couldn't actually get into some of these settings to change for your map. Now you can. So you can go into, for collection pieces, for accuracy, setting the distance, and also confidence level, which is really handy. for some of your data collection. GPS averaging, you can choose the frequency of your streaming and also the distance. Also photo upload size, maybe a lot of your users have their mobile devices, especially their phones, defaulted to super high quality photos, and those are going to take up a lot of space, and they're also going to take a little longer to load. So you can also change those settings here for what is being submitted within the field application. Some other pieces, this one, delete all points. This is also a nice new feature because previously if you had those really complicated polygons or lines, you had all these different points and you just needed to kind of edit those and delete a couple of points. Now you have the option to delete all points, so that'll save you some time. You can also turn off or on edit multiple, so maybe you don't want that map to be able to, the collector to be able to edit multiple features at the same time. You can turn that option off here. Some other pieces with feature action, collect here, so it's not necessarily having to collect right where your device is. Maybe you have another feature that you're trying to collect information for, or add one right next to it, or even right on top of it. You can do that with collect here and turn that feature on. And then you can also copy features, and you have the choice of how you would like to copy. If you just want to copy the information, the attributes, or the geometry, or all of it, you can turn that on here. Get rid of this. And then lastly, location tracking. This required switch, if you turn this on, the user will immediately see that when they open up their field application that, hey, you need to turn on tracking before you start collecting. So that'll prompt them to do that. Those are some of the pieces there within the web application. One other one I do want to show you, you might have seen this already, but this is a quick button here to convert your pop-up as you're going in there and setting up your map to be able to collect certain attributes for whatever features. You can convert the pop-up that you cleaned up and made pretty in your web map, and you can convert that to, we'll say, the template or the form that your team will be collecting information on. Because we know we spend a lot of time configuring and cleaning that up in the map itself. So those are some of the quick updates in Field Maps web application. I have more, just to kind of, I didn't show this to you on the web app, but just know that these are still available. So the team continues to do smart form improvements because, again, we want to make these as, we'll say, logical, relevant, smart as possible, and to also take some of the functionality from our other applications and bring it into Field Maps. For certain input types, you now have a switch option, so that's handy for if you have the yes or no or binary type questions. You could just easily switch that on or off, essentially. There's a no value option for nullable fields, so you give the user an option if it is something that could either be null or no value. They will see that. Description text for fields is now available. And then also, to be consistent across the board with our other applications, we've renamed hint to placeholder. So as you've been working with that, you probably realize those were the same thing if you were working in some other application. And then the submit button is always enabled. And this is a nice feature as well, especially if you have those long forms where the user forgot to input something and you go to submit and it's telling you, oh, you need to fill out something, but you don't know where it is. You don't know what page it is. So it'll tell you, you can still submit, but you have to go back and fill these out. Didn't mean to move that. Some other data collection and editing improvements. So again, I mentioned the copy feature option and then also the delete all points. You'll see that when you have the toggle switch and then also what it looks like on the actual mobile application. There's a lot on this page, I understand. So just to kind of briefly go over, this is on location tracking. So this past year, there's been licensing changes to this. So ArcGIS Tracker is now an add-on license that's included with the field worker user type, which is essentially the user type that you would have for people going out into the field and collecting data. And it still has the nice battery savings on our location tracking. It's not going to drain the user's battery, especially if you know you're going to be out in the field collecting 8-10 hours a day. It's not going to drain your mobile device. You can easily switch tracking on or off for all your maps, either from the map screen within a particular map, or as you see on the right-hand side, my video with the red background there, if you long press on the field maps icon, you can start tracking right away from there. And then there still is support on Apple Watch, and this is being improved constantly. I can start tracking right from my watch if I needed to. And then in a web application, you can view your tracks in the track viewer. And so that helps with trying to figure out the overall picture of where maybe a team member has been in that day. And then still in beta right now, but again, constantly being worked on is utility network support for field maps. So this is going to really come in handy for a lot of our, especially utility workers needing to look at how things are connected in that network. So again, still in beta, and you can follow some of those updates with the team as well. Okay, another big one with field maps is the Field Maps Integromat app update. And so Integromat is now, you'll see when you get in there, you can find ArcGIS field maps. It's still in beta as well, so you'll see the little sticker on there. This is going to be kind of your, we'll say the integration platform. So if you want to set up webhooks, if you want to be notified, for instance, if something happens on a particular feature, such as someone edited something or they deleted something, you can set up a trigger or an event for that. And I'm going to show you briefly the beginning pieces of that in Integromat. So I'll open this up real quick. So when I get into Integromat, again, this is just, I don't, in the interest of time, I can't go through the whole setup, but this is getting you started on creating a webhook from field maps and anything going on or different things going on with a particular feature. I'm going to get in Integromat and create a new scenario. And when you click on this big plus symbol, you'll see all the different applications that Integromat is integrated with. And this being the one I want, ArcGIS Field Maps Beta. These are the things I can do. I can set up triggers or actions. So my triggers, and I will show you this, the beginning parts of this, if someone edits something, if they delete something on a feature, I will get a notification after I set this all up. Or you can also set up what's called an API call. So maybe you're trying to query something from a different feature, or maybe you need to add features to another feature. That would be making the API call. But for this one, we want to do watch features. And so when you start getting into setting up this webhook, you'll do add. So I'm starting a new one. I'm going to give this a name. So I'll just leave it as the generic My Feature Layer webhook, or maybe you do inspections update, something, whatever is applicable to your line of work. And it'll also prompt you to connect. So this will be logging into an ArcGIS organization, ArcGIS Online organization. And once you log into your account, everything that you have available to you in that account, such as the feature layers, will show up in your list. And so this is where you progress on setting this webhook up. So if someone were to input new data on my Adopt a Stream submission form, I'm interested in anytime someone creates a new feature, maybe updates a new feature and deletes one. I want all of it. And then I will progress through the stages of setting up that to get an email, for instance. And again, I'm sorry, in the interest of time, I will only show you that piece, but I do have some resources that will walk you through every single step on setting up those webhooks. And I know since we're on a virtual conference, I can't hand you the link, or I'll copy and paste these later. But if you want to scan these QR codes, the first one will take you to a blog for using webhooks to automate workflows in ArcGIS field maps. So it'll continue on from where I just left off. And the second one is a little older, creating a hosted feature service webhook. It works with Integromat as well, so it'll walk you through some of the basic functionality with Integromat if you've never used it. So again, that's setting up webhooks, the big update being that Field Maps is now in Integromat to be set up. The last one I have is on ArcGIS Quick Capture. So just a couple of updates on Quick Capture, kind of our what's new. When you get into the application, you will notice that you have the option to set up link buttons if you want to set up a link to either a different, maybe a web page, different application, different project. You'll have that option to do that. Integration with site scan, so starting to collect information with your drones with Quick Capture, that is available now. The video on the right-hand side for peer-to-peer sharing, you have the option to have your peer or whoever else scan a QR code, and then it can open up that project to start collecting as well. You'll see a whole bunch of extra templates now available based on different industries and field data collection workflows, and then also location tracking. So again, with Tracker being deprecated, we're pushing tracking capabilities into our other field applications such as Quick Capture and Field Maps. And you'll notice some new variables for military grid and also US National Grid, and some other handy buttons for such as camera heading, your direction, where you're basically where your phone is pointing. And we've also included some other enhancements such as the icon gallery. So it was requested to include more of these so that you can customize those big buttons more so the way you want. You can also do some configuration with labeling and label sizes, and we have some new group functionality when you get into Quick Capture. So I know that's a lot of stuff, again, right on time, I'll say. That's a lot of information. We've had quite a few updates over the past year since we last met, but keep up with some of the other updates just in general with what's new in ArcGIS Online. There's a new blog post on that from September, and there's the QR code for that link. And then also just in general, if you're looking to do a lot of the things that I showed you today, check out some of our training sites, learn.arcgis.com or even esri.com/training, which is also connected to your ArcGIS Online organization. And then also our GeoNet community, our community.esri.com, where you can get a lot of that information. A lot of users either might post an issue with something they're experiencing that you can troubleshoot together, but then also our Esri employees are also involved in that community as well to help out. So some people might call this better than tech support, not sure. But yes, I know that was a lot of information. I want to thank you for your time. And if you have questions, we're going to be here for another few minutes. And then also you can email me directly or reach out to your account manager. Again, Lakeisha Coleman, and that is an L.Coleman at Esri.com. Otherwise, if you missed the dot, Lucy Coleman is going to get my emails. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lakeisha. That was fantastic. It's crazy to see how far some of these field applications have come. I was pretty excited to hear about the dynamic lists, the address functions in Survey123. Those are going to be great, I think. Just as a reminder to anybody in the chat, if you do have questions, please feel free to type them in the questions box. We've got a couple here, and I'm going to ask one myself as well. So I noticed, I just had a question, I guess, about the addresses in Survey123. How are they being stored? Is it all being stored in one field, or does it parse it out into separate fields? Because I know sometimes it can be helpful to be able to filter your data, say by state, if it's in a separate field, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So that particular address question, that is the big difference from collecting addresses before. That is all in one field. And so some people, I think, again, this is relatively new, so I know some of the customers I've worked with that they still might want to use separate text fields for collecting that address, and then also still use their GeoPoint question type as well. But if you don't really need to do a lot with address, like parsing out later on, that address field should work pretty well for you to put it all in one, because a lot of times we end up concatenating those fields anyway.
Very true, absolutely. So I have a question from Scott. He says, I created a field maps web map for tracking locations and treatment status of invasive plants. I've noticed that there's not a way, or at least I haven't figured it out, to edit existing points or polygons, only to add new points or polygons. Is there a way to edit these existing points and polygons?
If I'm understanding this correctly, interesting. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to open up field maps again to try this out, but this might take me a moment.
That's okay. In the meantime, would you mind showing the screen with the QR code that brought us to the webhooks automation page?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Awesome, thank you. And then just in the interest of time, we can always, Scott, we can always get back to you with an answer about the editing points and polygons. Be sure to get you an answer on that. We don't want to make you do anything live, right? The live demos are always tough. So I do have another question from a different Scott. He's asking about the configurations and some codes, which I'm assuming maybe are domains or coded values, disappearing if you edit the original web map that was used for field maps. Is that something that you've encountered during any of your creation of field maps?
No, so I'm sorry, Alex, can you repeat that? So basically you already have an existing field maps project, and then when you go and edit something about the project, then the domain changes?
Yeah, so the exact question is, has the issue with configs / code disappearing if you edit the original web map that was used for field maps? So I'm thinking Scott maybe is having an issue. Some of the code in the config window disappears if you edit the web map, is what he said.
Interesting. Okay, you guys are stumping me on the field maps ones today. So I don't know, but I will find out and then make sure, I mean, you guys can get my email address, and then if you don't mind, or Alex, I can grab that from you and see which user actually had that question so I can follow up with them.
Yep, absolutely. I can do that for you. And then one more. So I remember creating Survey123 applications and having to kind of hard code in, 67 Florida counties. So seeing the, kind of the other option, being able to auto-populate is pretty cool. Is there a maximum amount of options that can be added during the dynamic lists, or does that cap you anywhere?
It does not. It doesn't. We'll say the only maybe warning to give is that if you are especially working with those super long lists, like thousands long, to make sure you, on the appearance default, maybe you do minimal or compact. That way, when you actually do open that up in the field, it's not going to pull up every, 4,500, I don't know, however many you would have on that list on the device, because it'll make it unhappy. It'll take a while for all of that to load. So just for, loading, to set that up in your Excel form to make sure it's compact or minimal.
Awesome, great tip. I think that is all the questions we have today. Thank you again, Lakeisha, for your time today. Really appreciate it. If anybody else has any other questions, you have her email address. You can also email Shrug, and we'll be sure to contact her and make sure that we get you the answer to the questions that you have.